So let's talk about now. Tony and I did a podcast, did about 20-minute podcast, flipping over back to 7 Habits. Has everybody on here read that book somewhere over the last 30 years, 25 years?
You got to read it more than once.
Yeah. C.S. Lewis said any book worth reading is worth reading numerous times. Yeah. Tori, I'm going to call on you for a minute. I understand that you're the one who introduced this to Tony years ago, and he wouldn't read it, wouldn't pay attention to it or something like that.
My company, we had a certified trainer. So as soon as I started Amplify 15 years ago, we went through the 7 Habits class. I went through the Speed of Trust class, and we really just used it as a tool throughout our company for years. We have since moved on. We no longer really put it top of mind, but all of us old folks there, we still use it. But yes, I was the one to introduce it to Tony, and I was so thrilled when Knox's school, kindergarten, implemented it into their school. They were a lighthouse school, and it really just changed the dynamic of our family and being able to teach him that from such a young age. So it's been a huge blessing.
That's incredible. In kindergarten teaching.
Kindergarten, yeah. He would come home. Every child in the school, and this is a public school, mind you, came home with a binder, and the binder went through all 7 habits. And anytime they were disciplining or just their teachings was all around which step we're leaning into at that moment. So, it's been a few years since it's been top of mind, because he changed schools. But when we call on him, he still remembers them. So.
Yeah. Tony told us about that. But you got that little sheet up there, and that you have him referred to. Yeah, that's wow. Anybody else? Any experience with the 7 habits? Or I look at it. Sharpen the saw, which is what the 6th habit, I think, 6 or 7. And it's such a I was on a call last week, a program that I'm in, year-long mentoring training program, and we were introducing ourselves, and there were about 500 people on the initial Zoom call. Then they broke us off into rooms, and one of the guys on there, something said about my age, and the guy says, "Wow, Danny, that's great that you're still sharpening the saw." And I'm going, "Why wouldn't I be?" And I know 2 or 3 people on this call. I won't mention, Herdy, John, and Tom's name, but 2 or 3 people on this call are older than me. I have to keep up to keep keep it sharpened. So.
Pick up the pace, Danny. Get with it. Pick up the pace, man. Come on.
Yeah. Anybody else their experience with this?
I'll tell you, when we walked through Maxwell's 15 laws, that was my first time walking through. So it was a great information, lots of growth there. But this subject, for whatever reason, it's right in my wheelhouse. It gives me, what Covey did here was give everybody inside this, the parameters of what he's talking about with the 7 habits. They're just like a principle-centered approach that gives you the ability to adapt to change when things go wrong or awry, and it gives you the opportunity or to take advantage of the opportunity that change creates. And that's kind of what this all-encompassing platform means to me.
Yeah. I asked you this the other day, Tony. Let me just ask everybody. Do you have a favorite 7 habit? So let's just, some of you got a, trying to get this thing to, there it is. I've got notes up here. Now I don't have the 30th anniversary edition. I've ordered the hardback and it hasn't come in yet. And I haven't bought the digital, but with the notes that I sent, the overview, so does anybody have a favorite 7 habit or a favorite habit?
Mine is where are we? Sorry. I was going to say mine is the seek to understand first.
Yeah.
Because that's the one that, like, you want to build a win-win or you want to do some other things, you still have to have that first. And along with that is a listening one I've been really working on, which is to actually listen and not be thinking of my reply. I mean, 34 years of sales, you'd think you'd have it down, but it just, that ugly thing just pops in. What am I going to answer? And you're not really clarifying what am I understanding here first.
Yeah. What are they asking? What question? That's the one that slaps me upside the head. That I think they're asking one thing and they're asking something else. Most of you know I'm in the mortgage business, and I was talking to a lady this morning that is going through a divorce, and with an email last night, it said, I thought I understood. Well, it was just black and white. I instantly knew, wrongly, what she was wanting to do as she's going through this divorce, wants to pull cash out to pay off her ex-husband. And there's a thing in the mortgage business, it's called an loyalty deed. But she was going down, she had other questions that I jumped in the middle of it when I got to the phone call with her this morning. That right there, I hadn't even thought about it till right now. Seek first to understand and then to be understood.
Can I speak to what Beth said there?
Yeah.
So I think innately the human nature is, so if Danny and I are talking, I'm simply just, my response is already prepared. I'm waiting for his pause for me just to regurgitate or interject. Whereas the seek first to understand is I'm simply listening with intent. There is no response queued up. It's based on our interaction. Then I'm able to regurgitate so that I could be understood. And it is a learned trait.
Amen.
Yeah, it really is. It's, and discussions I've had over the years with people and with different temperaments, personalities. There's some people we think that they've got it. They are so sharp. We think they're listening, and find out that it's just their temperament. They're not really paying attention. They're just They're just naturally quiet. Somebody said to me, Joey McGear, some of you know Joey. We were at a breakfast meeting a few weeks ago, and he said something, and I said, and I don't know what he said, and I don't know if I'm pretty sure it was tongue in cheek, but I said, but it was something about that I'm very thoughtful about my response, and I said, Joy, I appreciate that, but really I'm just trying to figure out what I want to eat for lunch, and so anyway, there's a lot of truth to that. Go ahead, Tom. Yeah.
For me, it's the put first things first. I read this after I was trained as a medic. So when you're 19 years old, they tell you about triage. You go, come again. They tell you what triage is really about. You go, wait a minute, this is not quantum computing. I've used triage throughout my career because there's a group I can actually affect the outcome. There's a couple other groups I can't help. And at 19, you don't want to swallow that, but you got to because it works. But, people spend time on stuff. You go, wow, you just see the wheel spinning. You just, they're running in place. And they usually come to me when they go, I'm not getting anything done. Well, they're doing things that don't count. It's not their intelligence and all that. So I have to get focused on that. You know, put the first things first, because I can actually affect some outcomes by working within that, in that perspective.
Yeah, you know, as a CPA and a business consultant, you know, I know you see, no doubt, you see people that there's other things they need to be put ahead of what they think their problem is, right?
Well,
Hey,
yeah.
Danny.
I mean, I had a guy come to me, had a real, he was in financial survival mode, and he was focusing on the window dressing. And I said, well, first thing is, don't pay me. Take all your money and pay the payroll tax. Then come back. We'll talk. He goes, what? Don't pay me.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that matters, is get that off your back. He comes back, now we can have a rational conversation. He was so avoiding the issue, which was payroll tax. Like, take all your money, get them out of your life, then we can save the business. It worked, but he was in disbelief.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
that was the thing to do. I mean, it was not about getting paid. It's about trying to save him. We'll worry about getting paid later. But he thanked me later, but you know, he was in some denial. It happens.
yeah. There's some things you just got to get off your back. I worked for a man one time that he didn't pay payroll taxes, and IRS came after me, and I was an officer of the company. And let me tell you, I wanted to get that off my back. I could. There's a lot. I mean, I had a hard time concentrating on anything else. So anybody else? Let's just look through these. So the habits of here, I've got my notes printed out.
Hey,
Hey,
Tom.
I,
Go ahead. Go ahead,
oh,
Beth.
Yeah.
it's me, Sunny.
Let's see.
I wanted to share real quick, and I might be confusing my books, but the quadrants, where I know it was Covey, but it might be not his 7 habits, where the urgent and important and
Yep.
not urgent. Is that from 7 habits?
Yes, it is. I'll
Yes,
send
it is.
you.
I popped it in our chat, the little quadrant, already within this group. But that is something that I use every single day of my life, because I am I have bad ADD. So being able to, thanks, Dad, put it in a, a good a good way to manage my time. That is something that has I when I read the book, probably, gosh, when did we read? Maybe 20 years ago. That was the one thing that I took with me, and it has stuck with me to this day. And I literally think about it every single day. Like, okay, well, is this important? Is it? But it's not urgent. I like mentally put it in those quadrants. Everything that I do. So that's my big, what I the biggest takeaway.
Anybody else besides Sonny that doesn't have the summary? Steve, do you have it? Do you have the summary?
Yes, sir. I had summary. I do.
Yeah, okay. So everybody else has a summary.
Hey, on the third one. So Tom, you talked about the crisis mode, right? And Danny and I spoke about this on this particular. Covey talks about, of all the habits, this is probably the most difficult for people to get, and because his analogy is that people are addicted to the urgency of it. It's now. I got to have it. Danny, you and I talked about in the quadrants, the procrastinator, kind of what we talk about. They are operating in crisis mode. Everything is now urgent, late. And when you're in that chaotic mode, it is physically impossible to do anything else other than react. And when you're reacting, there's no way you can be proactive.
Yeah, great point, Tony. Herdy, I'm thinking about a conversation you and I had one time that you ended up with a bunch of, we're going to buy some 3x5 cards. That was right out of this, wasn't it?
So Danny was my coach at the time when I first started my business back in like 2009 or whatever that was. And one of the first books he had me read was the E-Myth Revisited. And he made me take out 3x5 cards and literally write down every cotton picking thing that I shouldn't be doing And so that stack was huge. I even had to put a ringer binder on it and throw it in my briefcase because it ended up being about this thick. And so I learned real quick that this was the problem. Either I was not organized or I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I would say it's a little of both at the time. Uh, so the proactive one for me is the one I focus on because I'm super organized. And I'm telling you, for me, if you're organized, so many other things fall into place and you can really focus on your reminders, your tasking, and what needs to be done in the present. So proactive, I always see as kind of straining toward the finish line where you're like a sprinter at the last second and stretching out to kind of get through that finish line. That's kind of where I think you can't do anything about the minute that passed, but you can always do something about the minute in front of you. And so I like that proactive law.
Yeah,
Not law, but the pro.
actually heard you what it was. You were getting ready to hire somebody, and
That's true.
to help you, and you wanted to talk through it. And you've been in business 2 or 3 years at the time, and I said, okay, this person you're hiring, what is this person going to do? And it was obvious after a few minutes that you weren't really sure. And
Yeah,
that's when I said, grab those 3x5 cards. And we were
that's
going through the
correct.
book and write down everything every task that you do. So, um,
Yeah.
Sonny, back to, that's interesting. I did not know you still use this. Uh, and what you'll find in the 30th edition, I don't believe, I don't remember him and his son, one of his sons, Sean Covey, has done the new edit to the book, but I don't remember the terms procrastinator, prioritizer, yes man, and slacker. I don't remember that in the past. Does anybody know if that was in the book originally? Tori, do you remember that? It was in the book originally? She might have had to step out.
Remember it in the original, not
Yeah.
those 4 quadrants.
Yeah. I don't either, and I like that. Um, but Sunny thinks that she got ADD from me, her adult ADD. She's had me tested twice. I don't test with adult ADD, so she's picked that up on her own. Uh,
You
Hey,
might have a recessive gene there.
yeah, spin that down and let's look at your desk.
yeah, yeah, okay. Uh, you know, going through these, win-win, think win-win. And I will tell you that at my age, uh, the logic side of me wants to kick in so bad. And when the logic is running rampant, it's hard to be creative. And but the think win-win.
In there, and then check on
I,
logs.
I expect I'm going to be really camping out inside of that here over the next few weeks. Who else?
Hey, Danny, on the win-win, it talks about that. It says, I'm gonna read it directly from it. It says most situations are part of an interdependent reality, and the win-win is the only viable alternative. And when you look at the win-win, it talks about win-win, and then it says or no deal. And that's probably the most important part is when we get to an impasse, when people can't agree on the win, which is you get what you want, you have to be able to disagree agreeably. Like shake hands and be friends.
Yeah. Yep. John, what's the name of John Becker? What's the name of the book that you guys are going through right now on Thursday mornings? Um,
Never split the difference.
Never Split the Difference. That's kind of I've read that book, but
By
that's
Chris
kind of
Voss.
That's kind of a win-win type philosophy, isn't it? Or is it?
No, I wouldn't say it was win-win.
Okay.
It's about not giving up compromise, then you're losing, right?
Yeah. Probably two different things there. Yeah. Yeah. So Steve, you haven't read the book?
Sir, but I've added it to my Kindle list to
Yeah.
grab.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. You'll hear us talking about some of this stuff. Austin's, I think, read it back at some point, but you'll pick up a lot of flavor from what we do. Steve's on our team. He's down in San Antonio, and
Welcome.
Thank you. I know 7 Levels of Communication y'all had me read has been great. Like that was a great book. So
yeah, Michael Mayer. Yeah, it sure is. That's anybody that networks. If you haven't read 7 Levels of Communication, the book 7L, the 7 Levels of Communication by Michael Mayer, Maher. It's a very, very important book. It's a fable. It is written about a mortgage loan officer and a realtor, but it's a very easy book to read and listen to. So let me just go. I've got some things highlighted here. Um, um, in the overview, um, again, Sean Covey is Stephen R. Covey, Dr. Stephen R. Covey's uh, youngest son. I think there's 3. Speed of Trust. That's going to be a book we're going to be talking about here shortly in the next few weeks. It is written by Stephen M. R. Covey, and he is the oldest, Dr. Covey's oldest son. So sometimes I'll refer to him to the author of 7 Habits as Dr. Covey to keep the 3 straight. But he says in the overview, our character is a composite of our habits, which form a powerful factor in our lives. Because habits are consistent, unconscious patterns, they constantly express our character and produce our effectiveness or ineffectiveness. Habits also have a tremendous gravity pull, breaking deeply embedded habitual tendencies such as procrastination, impatience, criticalness, or selfishness that violate basic human principles of human effectiveness involves more than a little willpower and a few minor changes in our lives. One of the things that picked up in one of the books I read last year was how important it is to rarely depend upon willpower. And since then, how often, and I remember wherever I was on a run and was listening to the book and replayed that part, ended up looking it up on the Kindle, and because I wanted to argue about it, because I figure I do a lot out of just sheer willpower. But but since then, I don't know how many books, 5, 6, 7 books have talked about what he's saying right there, that the basic human principles of human effectiveness involves more than a little willpower, and that willpower will fail you. And that's why we need what he's saying here. We need the habits.
Danny, that's what we talk about. The willpower is a finite resource, right? There's only so much you can will to happen. We talked about this in Maxwell, whereas the only way to create that habit, right, is to change your identity and how you view yourself and how you move forward. It's what you can control, right?
Yeah. who's read the book Psycho Cybernetics? If you took any psych classes in college, you probably were exposed to it. But it's a great book, Maxwell Maltz, and he says that you will not long outperform your identity, your self-identity. What you think about yourself, how you envision yourself, what Tony said about your identity, you can't long outperform it. You're gonna fall back into your identity.
And Danny, I think he has some buzzwords in that book, right? Like physically to put on yourself, like stop or quit. It really shout these out in the middle of one of these moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
To change your whole mental aspect,
Yeah.
which means you're changing. You're almost saying, stop. What am I
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah. There's a Dr. Caroline Leaf in her book, Start Your Brain. She refers to him on that point right there, where you have to pause. Then what she calls a 10-second pause. You bring 10-second pauses into your life to think about what you're feeling, and then choose at that point. It's how you literally develop new neural pathways. Um, let's keep going here a little bit. I'm on page 2 at the bottom of page 2 on that summary. Um, um, by the way, my license on that summary allows me to send it to 12 people, and I think I won't be sending any more out, and I'll be breaking that license. But anyway, a habit is an intersection of knowledge, skill, and desire. So knowledge is a theoretical paradigm, then what to do and why. Tori goes back into speed of trust right there. Just you go over into the 4 chords of credibility in the area around confidence, and then competence is made up. One of the components of competence is knowledge. Another component is skill. And so number 2 here is skill is the how to do it. So knowledge is what to do and why. So we're breaking down habits. A habit is knowledge, and then skill, and then desire. I told somebody today we were working through something, and he says, I've got to get into and I would say rhythm. I don't know if he said that or not, but I got into a rhythm where I'm not just doing what I feel like I'm doing. I mean, if all I do is what I feel like I'm doing, I'm in trouble, and a lot of people are in trouble that depend upon me.
Hey, Danny, right there, you acting on your wants. Dave Ramsey has a great quote, and he says, children do what feels good. Adults devise a plan and follow it.
Children do what feels good. Adults devise a plan and follows it.
Yeah.
So the 3 components of habits is knowledge, skill, and desire. Knowing what you need to listen, knowing you need to listen, and knowing how to listen are not enough. Unless you want to listen, it won't be a habit. Creating a habit requires work in all 3 dimensions. By working on knowledge, skills, and desire, we can break through to new levels of personal and interpersonal effectiveness as we break our old paradigms. What about this dependence, independence, and interdependence?
That's my mantra as a parent.
There you go, Sonny. Sonny's got girls aged 11, 17, and 23. So she's spanning.
Wow.
Yeah. Dependence is a paradigm of you take care of me, we come, or you take care of me, you come through me, you didn't come through, I blame you for the results.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so the analogy I gave in our podcast was, as a parent, I'm trying to model. the goal is to take the 9-year-old child who's dependent upon me, right? It's you take care of me, you cook my food, except we're not bathing anymore, but he's very dependent on those around him. And then the goal is to get him independent, where his vernacular is more, hey, I can do this. I'm responsible for myself. And then the next goal is interdependence, where the vernacular changes to we. Hey, look what we did together. That's my take on it.
Very good. So here in the notes, independence is the paradigm of I can do it. I'm responsible. I'm self-reliant. I can choose. Independence, speaking exactly what you said, we can do it. We can cooperate. We can combine our talents and abilities and create something great together. Interdependence is a more mature, advanced concept. As an interdependent person, you have the opportunity to share yourself with others, have access to the vast resources, potential of other human beings. Dependent people cannot choose to become interdependent. They don't own enough of themselves. That's worth buying the book just to read the rest of that right there.
Annie, when I used to teach recovery courses, the hardest part of the dependent folks to their addiction is they had a terrible time accepting that they were powerless over the very thing that was affecting their life. And they were not only dependent on the addiction, but they were dependent on everything around them to take care of them in that addiction, which is just really a terrible death spiral of blackness, because they didn't have any skills to understand how to get to the next level, the next step. And so, I would say that's the really dark side of dependence. And then the other side of it is just, we've all caught ourselves being dependent on something, maybe during a bad change or something going on in our life. So, I think we flow between those sometimes, right? Depending on where we're at with the change in our life.
Yeah, if you want something done, do it yourself. Something like that.
I'm my best worker.
Yeah.
Or call Hardy.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, Tom.
Quick insight into that I experienced. They asked me to build a tax department for about to be a public company, and part of the job was to hire a tax manager for me to rotate out. So they hired the first person without talking to me, and they were totally independent. The only problem is the most brilliant person cannot do a tax provision for a public company without help. You're not going to get in the office and by osmosis suck up this data. So that person lasted 3 months. We started over for the hiring process because I had like a list of like 20 people I had to talk to just to access data and to get insight before I could finalize a provision. So, I love that we had good people, but this person came in thinking, I know it, I got 20 years experience, I got this, totally failed. So it wasn't their IQ or degrees or whatever. They just did not buy into interdependence.
Great example. Great example. The says here that's why habits 1, 2, and 3 deal with self-mastery. They move a person from dependence to independence. They're the private victories. They are the private victories, the essence of character growth. Private victories precede public victories. You can't invert that process any more than you can harvest a crop before you plant it. It's inside out. Hardy and I are very slowly going through a book by Dallas Willard called Renovation of the Heart, and it's about that insight. I mean, I think Dallas might have gotten a paragraph directly out of this right here, Hardy.
Yeah.
So let's spend the next few minutes and but let's just go through these, and anybody just interject me or interject and stop me here, but let's go through each of the 7 habits real quick. But habit number 1: be proactive. Being proactive means more than taking initiative. It means we're responsible for our own lives. Our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions. Responsibility is the ability to choose your response. Some of us here are this one way, form, or fashion 12-week year. Well, Beth is a 12-week year person. She's used that tool, made a difference.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, made a big difference, and that's being proactive. And that everything that I think Moran and Ludington, got no doubt they are 7 habit people. And that part about our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions. It's mean we're responsible for our own lives. Nobody else is responsible for our lives. And the whole area around a big part of the 12-week year is ownership as accountability. And you got to take ownership. By the way, Beth, I got his new book. Have you seen it? Uncommon Accountability.
Oh, I'll get it today. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I started reading it over the weekend.
Hey, Danny.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Keep going.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Tony.
So in the regards to that mindset, or they create their own destiny, if you will, like in the largest study of millionaires ever conducted in the US, over 10,000 millionaires, one of the questions they asked them is, do you believe you control your own destiny? Are you in charge of how much money you make? You're in charge of your life. 99.5% of the 10,000 millionaires said that their decisions control their own destiny. Whereas if you ask that question to somebody who's struggling and wherever they are in life, it's much more of a victim, much more of a black cloud, much more of a mindset of that it's what Covey talks about here in the proactive. It's a fixed mindset, right? They believe that their intelligence and talent are fixed and there's nothing they can do about it. Whereas on the other hand, people with the growth mindset, they'll look at something and try to improve it or change it. And it's kind of what you talked about, abundance versus scarcity mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, that's which Tony's referring to something that we've talked about. The only real difference, and I forget the study on this, but the only difference between somebody that makes $50,000 a year and $50,000 a month is their mindset. It's how they're thinking. And go ahead, Steve.
If I could, I'm gonna to piggyback off of what Tony said. I'm in business. I've only been licensed for 9 months. I came from FedEx for 17 years. And what Tony said is 100% correct, where drivers and the warehouse workers and everyone were like, well, this is all I make and this is all I'm going to get. It's the company's fault, no one else. And that was their mindset, locked in. And I was like that because I was like, this is what I make an hour. These are my hours a week. And, that's just is what it is. And having come out of this business where it literally is, your money is in your own hands. Like trying to break that cycle has been something I've been doing. And it really is like you really do your fingertips, like it's out there, just go get it. But it's all depends, like you said, it's in the mindset, and it's about getting those shackles off your brain and really truly believing in yourself. And I told people that I left, I said I always boasted and bragged that I knew more than management at FedEx, and that's why I had a target on my back, because I was a spokesman for everyone. And now I'm really in a position where I can put my money where my mouth is, and I can prove it. All 100% on me. But if I do, it's 100% on me. And it's like I have friends over there still that I want to take a positive story to, and I can tell them, hey man, there's life after this. You're not stuck here. You can, like you said, 50,000 a year, 50,000 a month. Like it's there if you want to actually go out and get it. You just have to actually break yourself of those habits to actually go and get it.
Yeah.
So
good for you, Steve. I know Brett's coming down to spend the day with you on Friday, and his journey the past 3 years. We've seen. I'm sorry, Tony. What did you say?
Brett's journey is classic case study.
Yeah.
And so, Steve, you said the magic words in my ears. You said break the cycle.
Yeah. Break the cycle. Use another one. Take the shackles off of your brain. Oh my gosh, Sonny, you're going to use it. Yeah, Sonny's going to post that on Facebook before the end of the day.
That's public record. Everyone's free to use that one. No problem at all.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
No
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, good. Very good. Typical Covey. There's a lot of data in this book, and Covey was a maybe Brigham Young professor. He was a college professor, I think, Brigham Young. And this book came out of about 30 years of graduate classes work that they did, kind of similar to Good to Great. If you're familiar with that book, that's going to be a book we're going to be talking about sometime soon. That book was Jim Collins was I think a USC professor, and he tasked a 2-year graduate class on the results was that book. And a little bit different with 7 Habits. He brought a lot of stuff together from some different classes and things he had learned, and done some consulting to put all of this together. But a lot of data. We got somebody on our team that says in talking about the data. People with a fixed mindset believe their intelligence and talent are fixed, and that there's not much they can do about it. This is a reactive view of the world. I'm not good at math, or I've never been good with people, so why try? Kind of speaks to what you were saying there, Steve. We got somebody on our team that was very poor in math, he claims. Very poor. Took 3 years to get through Algebra 1 and skated through a couple other courses. And it didn't stop him from doing real well in the mortgage business.
There's a saying that when talent doesn't work hard work beats talent. Is another one that it hands down.
Yep. And so many times we don't try something because we don't think we have the resources. Well, we rarely have the resources to achieve a goal. We have to, the resources will come. We just have to go after it. So habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. Wow. And we just got through about 4 months working through our vision, our 1 and 5 year vision for our team, Tony. And I've got it right here. I keep it. I look at it. Sometimes it just gets shuffled around. Other times, I think it was yesterday morning, I've been under the weather for a while, and I had over the weekend, I woke up yesterday morning thinking, I've got to get back into my vision. And so begin with the end in mind. Put first things first. Talked about that a little bit earlier. If you're not familiar with that 4 quadrant, Sonny put a picture up in the chat. And everybody, if you'd like, put your contact information up there, so everybody's got each other's contact information. You hear something you want to talk to somebody about, reach out to them. Habit number 4: think win-win. Number 5: seek first to understand, then to be understood. Number 6 is synergize. Tony, there's not a lot of talk about this one, it seems like. As I've talked with other people about this book, so Synergy means that 1 plus 1 may equal 816 or even 1600. The synergistic position of high trust producing solutions. The synergistic position of high trust produces solutions better than any originally proposed, and all parties know it. They also genuinely enjoy the creative enterprise. Not here. You muted yourself somehow.
How's that?
There you go.
All right. So the synergize to me only happens when everybody's doing all of the other steps, right? So synergize, the way it was explained to me, is everything's happening without words, right? So it's hard. I'll give you a poor example. Since Tori's on here, I call it the delicate dance, right? You come home, you've got child, you've got house duties, you've got work duties, you've got spousal duties, and cleaning needs to get done, cooking needs to get done, all the things that go on. And she may be cooking and I'm cleaning or attending, to duties, and everything's happening unspoken. And then we all sit down together to eat. It's a poor example. It'd probably be better used in a classroom that's harmonized with the teacher. But to me, you can't have synergy unless everybody's pushing and pulling in the same direction.
Yeah. And what he said, which is the whole is greater than the sum of its peers. It means that the relationship the parts have to one another is a part in and of itself. You're each doing your thing, but it is not only a part, but the most catalytic, the most empowering, the most unifying, and the most exciting part. Talking about being a team, that goes back to that thing that I read out of the law of modeling a while ago. So really good stuff there. Again, the book comes in. That's going to be. I'm gonna camp out in this right here because things happen better with the team. And then habit number 7, we hit on a little bit. Sharpen the saw, and I'm gonna jump to the part where the 4 dimensions of renewal. Habit 7 is preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, you. It's renewing the 4 dimensions of your nature: physical, spiritual, mental, and social. This dimension centers on habits 4, 5, and 6. I love it when he does that. He draws us back so that we can go deeper. Again, he talks about change from the inside out. Real change comes from the inside out. It doesn't come from hacking at the leaves of attitude and behavior with quick fix personality ethic techniques. It comes from striking at the root, the fabric of our thought, the fundamental essential paradigms which give definition to our character and create the lens through which we see the world. Dr. Caroline Leaf, I mentioned it in her book, talks about it in all of her books, but her book, Switch on Your Brain, is where she introduced it. But there she talks about uh, the root, understanding the root of thoughts that you've got and the origin of where they came from, so that you can then work on them correctly. The it's she uses some of these same words, the fact that are talking about her thoughts, and so when I read that, I was thinking, gosh, this is what she says about developing new neural pathways. And guys, and a couple of you heard me say this a few times, but for those that haven't, is that as we get older, they know that the part of our brain that thinks logically naturally becomes more active. The part of our brain that thinks creatively becomes less active. It's not genetically like wrinkles and losing hair, gray hair. It's not genetic, but it is natural. You can turn it by asking questions. Because when you start asking questions, you get creative, and the more creative you are, the less logic can kick in. So, and she doesn't teach exactly like that, but there's something out there called concept therapy that teaches it, and it's that whole comfort zone. If you've seen me draw the stick man, that whole thing about conscious and subconscious, your results that come out of your action behaviors. I mean, our subconscious brain it thinks 10,000 times faster than our conscious brain. That's why when we set goals, we normally set goals with our consciousness. Okay? But we achieve goals with our other than conscious, subconscious or unconscious brain. And so it's why that we it's a different mindset that we achieve goals from which we set goals. And many times it's not failure, but it's a pause that we have to go through to get our unconscious to do what that goal is, because our unconscious mind is trying to keep us in a comfort zone. And that comfort zone, it takes something to jump through a thing called the terror barrier, because most of us fall back into comfort. And a lot of times our comfort zone is not even serving us well. So if you're trying to achieve a goal that you've never achieved before, you have to get out of this comfort zone into one or two higher level comfort zones. Anyway, whole different thing. Guys, we're going to wrap up. This is something that we're doing every Tuesday at 2:00. I'm going to give it a couple of days, see what kind of feedback I get on this, if we want to go deeper or if we want to go on to another book. The next book we will be probably going through is a book by Darren Hardy called Compound Effect, and I'll send some information out about that. But also the intention is here that as we go through some of this, that if we want to do a longer mastermind just on one book, like this book here, The 7 Habits, that's what we'll be doing. We have a podcast out there called What About Books,